Well, in 2008, we had a rollback election. We raised our taxes to 15 cents. Had a rollback election, which a rollback election is when you raise your taxes over 8%, then the voters have the right to, roll back your taxes back to the rollback rate. Well, we had that election, and the voters then had the election. They voted against a rollback, so the whole purpose of that was to start a paid service. We were really short on volunteers, and we had nobody answering the calls for service, when the ambulance was called out. And then the previous years after that, 2009, 10, 11, and 12, the effective tax rates did go up because evaluations went down. And now this year we have raised our taxes. The rollback rate would be 30.5 cents, and we set our tax rate at 35 cents. So, and that's mainly for operating expenses, the need for operating expenses.
What is the current financial status as you see it as hospital board president of the hospital district? Where are you financially?
Well, we're in good financial shape. We have a little fund balance. In 2006, I noticed they were putting out that we had a fund balance of $200,000. In 2006, we were a volunteer service. Our fund balance on that year's audit was $39,000. So there's a big difference, in those numbers. And my biggest concern is that people just need to come in and get those numbers for themselves and see what is really happening and where their money is being spent. I mean, that's a smart voter and smart taxpayer that will do that.
Mr. Lobmeyer, you are one that believes people need to vote for that rollback, and you do not need more tax revenue within the hospital district. And some of the information that you have been sending out to voters stated that back in 06 era, whenever Mr. Wilmoth took over as president of the hospital district, that fund balance was $200,000. Mr. Wilmoth is saying, according to the audit itself, it was actually $39,000. What's your take on the financial situation? Obviously, you don't see it the same.
Well, the fund balance in 2006 it was correct, as Mr. Wilmoth. It was actually over $200,000 in 2009, not in 2006. That's my mistake. There's no doubt about that. But the fund balance was well over $200,000, and their financial year goes from October 1 to September 30th. So if you look on the September 30th, 2009 audit, you'll see what their fund balance was then. And so it really exacerbates or makes the problem that we tried to bring out even worse, the fact that they've gone through that fund balance even quicker. But that was a mistake on that letter.
Gotcha. You meant it to say 09, and instead it said 06.
Well, I'm not saying I meant it to say 09. I'm saying I made a mistake.
I got you. That's what I meant to clarify. What is your bottom line take on the financial situation? You make it pretty clear. You believe the hospital district is under bad management. What do you mean by that?
Well, the numbers, when you get into the numbers, you can see that their taxable income has increased $40,000 in the last 2 years, and even if this rollback passes, it'll go up another $24,000, which is basically an 8% raise. Now, if you look back 2 years ago, their expenses on the audit were $296,000. There was total expenses. They had a payroll of, and their payroll expenses, counting employee benefits, payroll taxes, and everything that associated. And, I mean, this is a rough number, but the best I could was about $204,000. Now, last year's payroll, I get this from, they had a budget meeting in September, and they published the P&L for the year October 12th through September 13th. So keep in mind, that's not an audited. It's from their basically a QuickBooks account, and they showed their payroll expenses had gone up to $358,000. So it has risen $155,000 in 2 years. One of the statements that Mr. Wilmoth has made in his letter, well, first of all, the first letter stated that they lost $60,000 in revenue when the valuations went down, and that's just absolutely false, misleading statement. Secondly, Mr. Wilmoth said that every year our tax rates went up. because effective tax rates went down. Now, the evaluation for the Derzett Hospital District actually increased from 2011 to 2012 from $141 million to $147 million. Now, the effective rates would have gone down if you just would have left it as the effective rate. But our rates actually went up from 23.23 or something like that to 24.24, which they were before this. Now, where it hits me, and people have to look where they're at, my taxes this year, because my valuation of my house went up, is actually going 55% increase in 1 year. And that's my actual tax rate. Forget the, effective tax. That's my effective tax rate. But when I say mismanagement, I say that last year, if you look at the last, I have their audit from 2012, and it showed the fund balance of $114,000. Now, on their P&L from September, they showed that they spent $106,000 more than they took in last year. Now, that included that $150,000 of payroll increases in a 2-year period. And Mr. Wilmoth has tied the hospital district to the fire department. And when you say, how has he done that? Because what I would like to know, the one question, a couple questions I have, but one question that I've heard so many people ask is, on this new budget, it shows that they're going to pay, the hospital district is going to pay the fire department a $6,500 lease on a rescue truck that was paid for. And the hospital district actually paid for the Jaws of Life on it. Taxpayers paid for the truck, and it was paid for, but there was a $22,000 note taken out last spring. Where did that money go?
Mr. Wilmoth, come in here. A lot of numbers there, and that's really difficult for folks to follow on radio. Those that are in your hospital district that have had the chance to see some of those numbers on their own might have a chance to make more sense of that. But Mr. Wilmoth, your response to those numbers and some of the things that Mr. Lobmeyer is saying?
You can really get tied up in numbers, and that confuses a lot of people. But he's saying that I have tied the fire department to the hospital district, and I have done none of that. The board makes those decisions. The rescue truck, he says, the Jaws of Life and stuff were paid for by the hospital district. That's not true. The Jaws of Life were from a grant from the Forest Service. The rescue truck itself was a grant from the Forest Service. The rescue truck, yes, is tied in with the hospital district now with a lease, and that is due to we have licensed the ambulances in Oklahoma. Since we are so close to that border, we run a lot in Oklahoma, and that in turn we needed to license for Oklahoma, and our EMS personnel also licensed for Oklahoma. And to do that, the Oklahoma licensing requires you to have a rescue truck within your district to go along with those ambulances in case of wrecks or whatever. So that's one reason they secured that rescue truck, as part of the EMS. And it is a lease purchase agreement, yes, with the EMS.